The year was 2087, and humanity had finally achieved faster-than-light travel. After decades of research and countless failed attempts, the breakthrough came from a small team of scientists working in an underground lab in Nevada. The first FTL ship, the UVS Frontier, was built in orbit around Earth and sent on its maiden voyage with Captain John Miller at the helm. Captain Miller was a calm man with graying hair and steady hands. He had been chosen for his level head and experience with first contact protocols. The Frontier's mission was simple: explore the nearest star systems and gather data. No one expected they would meet aliens on their very first trip. The ship was 3 weeks into its journey when the sensors picked up an unusual energy signature. It wasn't natural. The patterns were too regular, too precise. Miller ordered the ship to approach cautiously. "All stations, yellow alert," he said, standing from his captain's chair. "Let's not make any sudden moves." The crew watched in awe as a massive ship came into view. It was unlike anything humans had designed, smooth and curved, with sections that seemed to flow into each other like liquid metal. Before Miller could decide what to do, a message came through their communication system. "Greetings, travelers. We represent the Galactic Council. We have been monitoring your system for some time and noted your achievement of FTL capability. We welcome you to the greater community of spacefaring species." Within days, Earth was buzzing with the news. Governments scrambled to respond. The United Nations quickly appointed Ambassador Lisa Clark as humanity's first representative to this galactic council. Lisa was smart and careful. She had worked in international diplomacy for 15 years and understood the importance of first impressions. As she prepared for her first meeting with the council, she reviewed what little information they had shared about themselves. The council consisted of 12 major species, each with their own unique biology and culture. They had been working together for over 1,000 years, managing trade, resolving conflicts, and sharing technology. Humans were the 27th species to join since the council's founding. When Lisa arrived at the council's massive space station, she was greeted by representatives of all 12 major species. Some looked almost human, while others were completely alien. From floating gas clouds to insect-like beings with multiple limbs. During the initial meetings, Lisa noticed something interesting. When the council members discussed conflicts between species, they never mentioned wars. They talked about diplomatic negotiations, ritual combat between champions, and even mathematical competitions to resolve disputes. "And how does your species typically resolve major conflicts?" asked Saltor, a tall, blue-skinned being who led the council. Lisa hesitated. Earth's history was filled with wars, bloody, brutal conflicts that had killed millions. She decided to be selective with the truth. "We prefer diplomatic solutions when possible," she said carefully. "We have developed many methods for peaceful conflict resolution." This wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Lisa didn't mention the world wars or the countless regional conflicts that had shaped human history. She didn't tell them that humans had developed weapons that could destroy entire cities or that military strategy was studied extensively on Earth. Over the next few months, Lisa learned more about the council species. Most had experienced small conflicts in their distant past, but nothing like the scale of human wars. The concept of nations fighting nations across entire continents seemed primitive and unnecessary to them. As human diplomats integrated into council society, they were careful about what parts of human history they shared. Lisa instructed her team to emphasize human art, science, and philosophy, not our long history of warfare. "We're on probation," she told her staff during a private meeting. "Until we understand our place here, we need to put our best foot forward." What Lisa didn't know was that the council was already growing curious about the parts of human history that weren't being shared. And soon, they would discover just how different humans really were. 6 months after first contact, junior diplomat Alan Garcia arrived at the council's main station. Alan was young, curious, and had a passion for history. While other human diplomats focused on trade agreements and technology exchanges, Alan spent his free time exploring the Masset station. One day, Alan discovered the Council's historical archives. The room was enormous, filled with data terminals that contained the collected knowledge of all Council species. Alan received permission to study these archives and began spending hours there each day. "You seem very interested in our histories," said a voice behind Alan one afternoon. Alan turned to find a Melanorian named Zix watching him. Melanorians looked like tall, thin humans with pale blue skin and large eyes. Zix was the Council's head historian. "I find it fascinating," Alan said. "Each species has such a different path to space travel." Zix sat beside Alan. "And what about humans? Your Ambassador Clark has shared some information, but it seems incomplete." Alan felt uncomfortable. He knew the guidelines. Don't focus on Earth's wars or military history. But he also valued honesty. "Our history is complex," Alan said carefully. "Like many species, we had conflicts in our past." Over the next few weeks, Alan and Zix developed a friendship. They exchanged stories about their home worlds and cultures. Gradually, Alan began sharing more about human history, carefully selecting which conflicts to discuss. "So your countries fought over resources and territory?" Zix asked after hearing about the American Civil War. "Yes, but also over ideas and ways of life," Alan explained. "The Civil War was partly about whether humans could own other humans." Zix's large eyes widened. "Such a concept is disturbing, but the idea that you would fight to end this practice is admirable." As their talks continued, Alan shared more stories: the American Revolution, the fall of Rome, the Mongol Empire. He avoided mentioning the world wars or nuclear weapons, focusing instead on how conflicts had sometimes led to positive change. What Alan didn't know was that Zix was recording these conversations and sharing them with the Council leadership. The aliens were becoming increasingly fascinated by human resilience. "No other species has faced so many challenges and survived," Zix told the Council during a private meeting. "Humans fight, yes, but they also rebuild and grow stronger. There is much we could learn from them." Some Council members disagreed. "Their history suggests they are dangerous," said Krell, a reptilian leader. "We should monitor them more closely." The Council secretly increased surveillance of human space. They watched Earth broadcasts, studied human literature, and analyzed military files their computers could access. What they found alarmed them. Meanwhile, Alan continued his work in the archives, unaware of the growing concern. One day, he found records of a species called the Vexari, who live near human space. The Vexari are territorial, but avoid direct conflict, Zix explained when Alan asked about them. "They prefer to establish clear boundaries and maintain them strictly." "That sounds reasonable," Alan said. "Have they ever caused problems for the Council?" Zix hesitated. "They are not technically Council members. They interact with us when necessary, but prefer isolation. Their territory borders what is now human space." Alan felt a chill. "Have you informed our leaders about this?" "I believe your Ambassador Clark has been briefed," Zix said. "It is not an immediate concern. The Vexari rarely engage with new species, but even as they spoke, reports were coming in from the border between human and Vexari space. Human colony ships had been spotted near Vexari territory. The aliens had sent warnings, which the humans either didn't understand or chose to ignore." The Council watched with growing concern. They had seen what happened when stronger species encroached on weaker ones, but they had never seen what happened when someone challenged humans. They were about to find out. 5 years had passed since humans first joined the galactic community. In that time, they had established colonies on 3 planets beyond their home system. The furthest colony was on Proxima, a rocky world orbiting the star closest to Earth's sun. Commander Nickel Wright stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the stars through the main view screen. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. The Defender was a military ship disguised as a research vessel. The Council didn't need to know about its true purpose. "Commander, we've received another message from the Vexeri ships," said her communications officer. "They're demanding we leave this sector immediately." Nicole frowned. The Vexeri had been sending threats for weeks. They claimed that Proxima was within their territory, despite human surveys showing it was unclaimed space when the colony was established. "Send our standard response," Nicole ordered. "Remind them that we're operating within recognized neutral space and have no hostile intentions." Her orders from Earth were clear: show restraint. Ambassador Clark was still working to build trust with the Council. A conflict with another species would not help those efforts. The next morning, Nicole was awakened by alarms. She rushed to the bridge to find her crew at battle stations. 3 Vexeri ships have entered orbit around Proxima, her first officer reported. They're launching landing craft toward the colony. Nicole's training kicked in immediately. Intercept course. Ready defensive systems only. Contact the colony and tell them to activate emergency protocols. The Defender moved quickly, positioning itself between the Vexeri ships and the colony. On the view screen, Nicole could see the Vexeri vessels. They were angular and dark, with sharp protrusions like spines. "Open a channel," she ordered. When the connection was established, she spoke clearly. "Vexeri vessels, this is Commander Wright of the UES Defender. You are approaching a human settlement. Withdraw immediately, or we will be forced to defend our people." The response came quickly. "Humans do not belong here. The weak must give way to the strong. This is the natural order." Before Nicole could respond, energy beams lanced out from the Vexeri ships toward the colony below. The defense shields absorbed most of the attack, but sensors showed damage to the outer buildings. "They're firing on civilians," Nicole's weapons officer said, his voice tight with anger. Nicole made her decision. Target their weapon systems only. Disable, don't destroy. What followed was unlike anything the watching Council observers had ever seen. The Defender moved with impossible precision, evading the Vexeri attacks while landing pinpoint strikes on their weapons arrays. Nicole's crew worked like a single organism, anticipating orders before they were given. In 17 minutes, all 3 Vexeri ships were drifting, their weapons disabled and propulsion systems damaged. Not one had been destroyed. The colony below reported only minor damage and no casualties. Nicole opened communications again. "Vexeri vessels, you have attacked a peaceful settlement without provocation. We could destroy you, but that is not our way. Withdraw from this system and do not return." The Vexeri ships limped away, sending angry messages that the humans ignored. What Nicole didn't know was that Council observers had recorded everything. The footage spread quickly through Council space. Species that had never seen real combat watched in awe and horror as humans demonstrated their military efficiency. An emergency Council meeting was called. Ambassador Clark was summoned to explain what they had witnessed. "The precision of the human response suggests military training beyond what you have disclosed," said Saltor, the Council leader. "Your ship disabled 3 vessels in minutes with no casualties. This level of tactical skill comes only from experience." Lisa Clark knew the careful balance she had maintained for 5 years was about to collapse. The Council was about to discover humanity's greatest secret and greatest shame. "I believe," she said carefully, "it's time we had an honest conversation about human history." The Galactic Council chamber was silent as Ambassador Lisa Clark finished her presentation. For 3 hours, she had shown selected images and videos from Earth's military history. She had been careful not to show the worst horrors, but what she revealed was shocking enough. Senior investigator Frank Delgado stood beside her. Frank was a stocky man with a serious face and 20 years of military experience before joining the diplomatic corps. The Council had appointed him to work with their investigators to examine human military capabilities. "So you're saying," Zaltor spoke slowly, "that your World War II involved over 30 countries and killed more than 50 million beings?" "Yes," Lisa said quietly. It was the deadliest conflict in our history. The council members looked at each other in disbelief. Their species had experienced conflicts, but nothing on this scale. The idea of entire planets at war was beyond their understanding. And after this war, continued Krell, the reptilian council member, your countries built weapons that could destroy entire cities. Frank stepped forward. Yes, but we also created organizations to prevent such weapons from being used. We learned from our mistakes. The investigation continued for weeks. Frank worked closely with alien counterparts, explaining human military history, while trying to emphasize humanity's progress toward peace. But the more the aliens learned, the more concerned they became. Your species developed something called guerrilla warfare? Asked Ziv, a small furry investigator from a species called the Talari. Yes, Frank explained. It's a way for smaller forces to fight against larger ones by using surprise attacks and quick retreats. And this Cold War, you threatened each other with destruction for decades without actually fighting? Asked another investigator. Frank nodded. It wasn't our finest moment, but it ended peacefully. Each revelation brought new concerns. The council learned about human concepts like total war, psychological operations, and strategic bombing. They studied human generals from Alexander the Great to Napoleon to Patton. During one session, Frank showed the council members a simple chessboard. This game has been played on Earth for over 1,000 years, he explained. Children learn it. It's a game of strategy and tactics, of sacrifice and patience. Your children play games about war? Asked a shocked council member. Frank realized he wasn't helping his case. Meanwhile, Lisa was fighting a political battle. Some council species were arguing for humanity's containment, restricting human ships to their own star system and limiting their contact with other species. They're too dangerous, argued Krell during a council debate. Their entire history is built around conflict. They think in terms of winners and losers, of conquering and being conquered. Others were more moderate. Humans have shown restraint, said Mira, a gas-based council member. Commander Wright could have destroyed those Vexeri ships, but she chose not to. Lisa worked tirelessly, building alliances with more sympathetic council members. She emphasized humanity's art, literature, and philosophy. She shared stories of human peacemakers and humanitarians. Frank focused on practical concerns. Containing humans would require massive resources, he told the council, and it would turn a potential ally into an enemy. Is that what you want? As the investigation neared its end, Frank and Lisa prepared for the council's final decision. They knew that humanity's future in the galaxy hung in the balance. What they didn't know was that events far from Earth would soon change everything. On the outer edge of council space, a new threat was emerging, one that would test the council's peaceful principles. That evening, as Frank reviewed his notes for the next day's session, he received an urgent message from Lisa. Come to my office immediately, it read. The council just received a distress call. We may have bigger problems than our investigation. Frank rushed into Lisa's office to find her with 3 council members. Their faces were grim as they watched a holographic display showing a battle in space. What am I looking at? Frank asked. The Krath Collective, said Exaltor, a species from beyond council space. They've begun attacking our outer colonies. The hologram showed sleek, black ships firing on a peaceful settlement. Council defense ships tried to protect the colony, but they were being destroyed one by one. The Krath have ignored all attempts at communication, Mira explained. 3 colonies have already been destroyed. Thousands are dead. Lisa looked at Frank with worry in her eyes. The council has never faced an enemy like this. Their military forces are limited. Frank understood immediately. The peaceful species of the council had little experience with real warfare. Their ships were designed for defense, not attack. Their crews weren't trained for combat. We've called this meeting, Zaltor said, turning to face them, because we need your help. 2 days later, Frank and Lisa stood before the full council. The investigation into human military history had been suspended. Now the Council wanted to know if humans could help stop the Krath. "You've seen our military capabilities," Lisa said. "We believe we can help, but we would need to use tactics that you might find disturbing." "What exactly are you proposing?" asked Krell, who had been one of humanity's strongest critics. Admiral Olivia Martinez stepped forward. Olivia was a tall woman with dark hair streaked with gray. She had commanded Earth's space forces for 5 years and had been brought to the Council station to assess the situation. "I propose a joint task force," she said. "A small fleet of human ships working with your best vessels. We would engage the Krath in a limited operation to demonstrate that further attacks will be costly for them." The Council members looked uncomfortable. "You mean you want to fight them?" asked one. "Yes," Olivia said simply. "Sometimes the only way to prevent a larger war is to show your strength in a smaller one." The debate lasted for hours. Some Council members refused to consider military action. Others saw no alternative. "If we do nothing," Mira argued, "the Krath will continue to destroy our colonies. They've shown no interest in diplomacy." "But if we fight them," countered another member, "we become like them. We become like humans." The room fell silent at these words. Frank saw the fear in their eyes. Fear of becoming a species that solved problems through violence. Olivia stepped forward again. "With respect," she said, "there's a difference between fighting to conquer and fighting to protect. We humans have done both in our history, and we've learned the difference. What I'm proposing is purely defensive." She activated a holographic display showing her battle plan. It was elegant and precise, designed to disable craft ships with minimal casualties on both sides. "Our goal isn't to destroy the Krath," Olivia explained. "It's to show them that attacking Council worlds isn't worth the cost. Once they understand that, we can try diplomacy again." The Council voted narrowly to accept the human proposal. 10 days later, Admiral Martinez led a small fleet to the border where the Krath had been attacking. 6 human ships joined 20 Council vessels, forming a defensive line around a vulnerable colony. Lisa and Frank watched from the Council station as the fleet took position. They knew that humanity's future in the galaxy might depend on what happened next. "Do you think this will work?" Lisa asked quietly. Frank watched the human ships moving into perfect formation, their crews ready for battle after years of training. "Yes," he said, "but I'm not sure the Council is ready for what they're about to see." As he spoke, sensors detected a large group of craft ships entering the system. The battle that would change galactic history was about to begin. Admiral Olivia Martinez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Determination. 32 craft ships had entered the system and were moving toward the colony. The combined human-alien fleet waited in defensive formation. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said her first officer. Olivia nodded. She had spent the last week training the Council crews in basic combat tactics. They had learned quickly but had never faced real battle. "Open a channel to all ships," she ordered. When the line was open, she spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Martinez. Remember your training. Stay in formation. Support each other. We are not here to destroy the Krath, only to show them that attacking this colony is not worth their effort. Good luck." The Krath ships approached without responding to any communication attempts. They moved in a tight group, their black hulls absorbing the light from the nearby star. "They're powering weapons," reported the sensor officer. Olivia gave the order. "Execute Battle Plan Alpha." What followed was unlike anything the Council species had ever seen. The human ships moved with incredible coordination, splitting the Krath formation. Council ships followed, protected by human vessels that took the brunt of the enemy fire. On the Council station, the leaders watched the battle through a live feed. Frank and Lisa stood with them, explaining what they were seeing. "Admiral Martinez is using a tactic we call divide and conquer," Frank explained. "By splitting the enemy force, she prevents them from concentrating their fire." The Council members watched in silence as human ships performed maneuvers that seemed impossible. They rolled and turned, always presenting their strongest shields to the enemy, while targeting the craft ship's weapons and engines. "Why aren't they aiming for the center of the enemy ships?" asked Krell. "Because our goal isn't to kill," Lisa explained. "It's to disable them without unnecessary loss of life." Olivia directed the battle with calm efficiency. When 3 craft ships broke through and headed for the colony, she dispatched a small, fast group to intercept them. When a council ship was heavily damaged, she ordered 2 human vessels to cover its retreat. Back on her bridge, Olivia received a message from a council captain whose ship had been saved by a human vessel that took heavy damage in its place. "Why did your ship risk itself for us?" the alien asked. "That's what allies do," Olivia replied simply. "We protect each other." After 2 hours of fighting, the battle was over. 7 craft ships had been destroyed when they refused to retreat. 15 were disabled and drifting in space. The rest had fled back to craft territory. The human council fleet had lost 3 ships and suffered damage to 12 others. As the fleet secured the area, Olivia ordered rescue operations for the crews of the disabled craft vessels. "They may be our enemies," she told her officers, "but they're still living beings." Footage of the battle spread quickly through council space. Species that had lived in peace for centuries watched in awe as humans demonstrated combat tactics developed over thousands of years of warfare. The council leaders were conflicted. The human intervention had saved the colony and possibly prevented further craft attacks, but the efficiency with which humans fought was frightening. They knew exactly what to do. Mira said during an emergency meeting, "Every maneuver, every formation. It was like they had fought 100 battles before." "They have," Frank told them quietly. "Throughout our history, we've fought many wars. We've made terrible mistakes. But we've also learned how to protect those who cannot protect themselves." As the damaged ships returned to the council station for repairs, Admiral Martinez prepared her report. She knew the battle had shown the council both the best and worst of humanity, our capacity for violence, but also our willingness to risk ourselves for others. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. 1 week after the battle with the Krath, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The main chamber was packed with representatives from all council species. The topic was simple but important: what to do about humans. Ambassador Lisa Clark sat at the center of the room, feeling all eyes on her. She had spent days preparing for this meeting, knowing that humanity's future in the galaxy would be decided here. Zaltor, the council leader, spoke first. "We have called this session to discuss what many are calling the human problem. Their help against the Krath was valuable, but their military capabilities raised serious concerns." The debate began immediately. Some council members praised the humans for their help. Others warned of the danger of allowing a species with such warlike tendencies to move freely through the galaxy. "They saved our colony," argued Mira, the gas-based council member who had supported the joint operation. "Without human intervention, thousands more would have died." "But at what cost?" countered Krell, the reptilian leader who had always been suspicious of humans. "We've invited a predator species into our peaceful community. Their entire history is built on warfare and conquest." The arguments continued for hours. Some suggested quarantining Earth and human colonies, allowing no further expansion. Others proposed strict monitoring of all human ships. The most extreme voices called for removing humans from council space entirely. As the debate heated up, Lisa asked for permission to speak. When granted, she walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the alien faces. "I understand your fears," she began. "You've seen what humans can do in battle. You've learned about our violent history, but you've only seen one side of humanity." She activated a holographic display showing images from Earth: children playing, scientists working, artists creating, people helping each other after disasters. "Yes, we have fought wars," Lisa continued. "Yes, we have developed weapons and tactics that frighten you. But we've also created music and art and literature. We've developed medicines and technologies to improve lives. We have fought to end suffering and injustice." She paused, looking directly at Krell. "You fear that we will bring war to your peaceful galaxy. But as you've seen, we can also bring protection to those who cannot defend themselves." The council members listened in silence. Lisa knew she was fighting for humanity's place among the stars. "I propose a compromise," she said. "Humanity will share our defensive knowledge with the council. We will help train security forces and develop protective systems. In exchange, we agree to restrictions on our military activities. We will not engage in warfare except under strict council supervision." The room filled with whispers as species discussed the proposal among themselves. Some seemed interested, others still suspicious. An older council member named Vos, who had been silent until now, stood to speak. He was from one of the founding council species and was highly respected. "I have studied Earth's history since humans first joined us," he said. "Yes, they have fought terrible wars, but they have also shown the ability to learn from their mistakes, to grow beyond their violent past. The Krath attack has shown us that our galaxy is not as peaceful as we believed. Perhaps we need humans more than we want to admit." The debate continued for another day. Eventually, the council took a vote. The result was close: 27 species in favor of Lisa's proposal, 25 against. Zoltor announced the decision. Humans will remain part of the galactic community, but under new protocols that will govern their military activities. Ambassador Clark, your government must agree to these terms if Earth wishes to maintain its place in the Council. Lisa nodded, relief washing over her. It wasn't a complete victory, but humanity would have a chance to prove itself. As the session ended, Krell approached her. "I voted against you," he said bluntly. "I still don't trust humans, but I hope you prove me wrong." "We will," Lisa promised. "Just give us the chance." 6 months after the council vote, Earth formally signed what became known as the War Protocols. These new rules were simple but strict. Humans could not engage in warfare except under direct council supervision. Human ships could carry defensive weapons but needed special permission to use them. All military technology had to be registered with the Council. In exchange, Earth became the center for the new Galactic Defense Academy. Here, humans would train Council security forces in defensive tactics. The Academy was built in orbit around Earth, a massive station where species from across the galaxy could learn from human military experts. Admiral Olivia Martinez was appointed as the Academy's first director. On the day it opened, she stood before representatives from 50 different species. "We will teach you to protect, not to conquer," she told them. "You will learn the difference between fighting for power and fighting for peace." Frank Delgado became the head of the Academy's history department. His job was to teach alien students about human conflicts, to help them understand the lessons Earth had learned through centuries of warfare. "To prevent war, you must understand it," he told his first class. "Human history is filled with terrible mistakes, but also with courage and sacrifice." At first, many Council species were reluctant to send students to the Academy. They feared that learning human war tactics would change their peaceful cultures. But after a second Krath attack was successfully defended by Academy graduates, more species began to participate. Human military history became required study for all Council security forces. They learned about ancient battles like Thermopylae and modern conflicts like the World Wars. They studied the strategies of great generals and the mistakes of failed ones. But they also learned about the Geneva Conventions, about rules of engagement designed to protect civilians, about the difference between necessary force and cruelty. Humans taught not just how to fight, but when not to. 5 years later, Captain Paul Martinez, Olivia's son, stood on the bridge of the CSS Guardian, the first mixed-species security vessel. His crew included members from 15 different Council species, all Academy graduates. "Captain, we've detected a distress signal from a colony in Sector 7, reported his Nullinorian first officer. "Set course immediately," Paul ordered. Prepare defensive systems, but do not power weapons unless authorized. As the Guardian traveled to the colony, Hall thought about how much had changed. Humans were still viewed with caution by many council species, but also with growing respect. The war protocols remained in place, but they had evolved from restrictions to guidelines. The galaxy had learned a difficult truth. Peace was not just the absence of conflict, but something that sometimes needed to be actively defended. And humans, with their long history of warfare, had turned out to be the best teachers of this lesson. When the Guardian reached the colony, they found a simple misunderstanding between settlers and a passing trade ship. No weapons were needed, just careful negotiation. Paul was glad. He had learned both sides of his heritage. From his human ancestors, he had inherited the ability to fight when necessary. From the Council, he had learned the patience to avoid fighting whenever possible. Back on Earth, Lisa Clark, now retired from her ambassador role, sat with Taltor in a garden overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The Council leader had come to Earth for the Academy's 5th anniversary celebration. "Did you ever imagine it would work out this way?" Saltor asked. "Humans teaching peace through their knowledge of war." Lisa smiled. "Our history made us good at fighting, but it also taught us the value of peace. We just needed a chance to show both sides." In the sky above them, ships from across the galaxy arrived for the celebration. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as reluctant warriors and hopeful peacekeepers. The war protocols remained in place, a reminder of humanity's dangerous potential, but they had also become a framework for a new understanding. Sometimes, knowing how to fight was the best way to avoid having to.